I did not send word ahead. That was my first mistake, according to my seneschal, who has never once forgiven me for it. The maintenance bay under the old dockyard smelled like it always had: hot metal, spent coolant, and the particular staleness of air that has been breathed by machines longer than by people. I had come alone, in a plain coat, to look at the lantern vigil before she flew again. My father's ship, 31 years grounded, and now, for his memorial voyage, someone had to make her fly one more time. I found the someone under the hull, on a wheeled cart, with a work light clamped to her collar, and a spanner clenched between her teeth, like a woman holding a grudge. "You're standing in my drop light," she said, without looking. I moved. She noticed the boots then, not the coat, and went still for exactly one breath before deciding, correctly, that royalty rarely comes to a maintenance bay in unpolished boots, and went back to work. "They send someone new every week to ask when she'll be ready," she said. "You look older than the last one. I get that a lot." She snorted, an honest sound, not a courtly one, and rolled out from under the hull. Gray hair cropped short and practical, hands scarred the particular way that only comes from decades of them. A coverall with someone else's name stitched over the pocket, because the Crown, apparently, could not be bothered to order new uniforms for its 9th-tier contract mechanics. She looked at me the way she'd look at any other man asking a question she'd answered 40 times. "She'll fly," the mechanic said, nodding at the ship. "Old bones, good bones. Whoever built her respected weight doesn't waste a gram anywhere it isn't earning its keep." My father used to say the same thing. "Your father had good taste then." I did not correct her. I sat down on an upturned crate instead, because there is a particular kind of relief in being spoken to like a man and not a crown, and I have learned to take it wherever I find it, briefly, before someone remembers who I am, and the room rearranges itself around the fact. She made tea in a dented kettle over a portable burner, poured 2 cups without asking if I wanted one, and handed me the chipped one without apparent thought, which is how I knew she meant it kindly. "Cold in 20 minutes, she said. "Drink it while it's honest." We talked, in the unremarkable way people talk when neither one is performing for the other. She told me the ship's stabilizer coil was original and stubborn, and better than anything they made now. I told her my father used to fly her low over the summer coast, badly, on purpose, because it made my mother laugh. She said that sounded like a man worth flying for. I agreed. It was reaching for the coil housing, sleeve riding up past the elbow, that showed me the mark on her forearm. Old, silvered with age, a puckered line where a burn had been stitched shut in a hurry by someone without the luxury of a real medbay. Beneath it, so faint I might have imagined it if I hadn't spent half my life staring at the same photograph, was the ghost of a company insignia, not one I recognized from any active roster, one I recognized from a picture that had sat on my father's desk for 30 years, a picture he never once explained. I set my tea down carefully, because my hand had started to shake, and asked her, as evenly as I could manage, "Where did you serve?" She looked at the scar like she'd forgotten it was there. "Long time ago. Doesn't matter now." "Corin's pass," I said. "It matters to me." Her hands went still over the coil housing. For the first time since I'd arrived, she looked at me properly, not at the boots, not at the coat, but at my face, the way you look at someone when a fact has just rearranged itself behind your eyes. "That was a defeat," she said carefully. "Officially. Ask anyone. I've read the official account 4 times. It's short. It says the garrison held 11 extra hours due to, and I quote, field improvisation of unknown origin. My father used to get a look on his face whenever anyone read that line aloud. I never understood it. He kept a photograph on his desk his whole life, a work crew standing in front of a half-repaired flagship, none of them named in the record. I used to ask him who they were. He always said, "The reason I'm alive to answer you." He never said more than that. He died, still not saying more than that. She didn't answer right away. She wiped her hands on a rag that had clearly wiped 1,000 other hands clean before this one, slow, giving herself something to do. "We didn't have proper tools," she said finally. "Coil housing had cracked clean through. Same fault line as this one, if you want to know the truth of it. We didn't have replacement parts. We didn't have a working forge. We had 11 hours before the second wave, and a ship that wouldn't lift. So we did what you do when the manual runs out. We used what was in our hands. She held up the same battered spanner she'd had clamped in her teeth when I arrived, turned it once in the light like it was an old friend she hadn't seen in years. This one, as it happens. Same one. I don't believe in luck, but I keep it anyway. You saved the ship. I saved a ship. There's a difference between saving a ship and being the reason a war turned. I was a mechanic with a spanner and not enough sleep. Everyone else in that crew is the reason anybody remembers Corin's pass as anything but a grave marker. I just happened to be the one your father's photographer caught in frame. He kept that photograph for 30 years. Then he was a sentimental man, she said, and there was something unsteady under the gruffness now, something she was working hard to keep level. I never knew what happened to him. After the pass, they scattered us. Quietly, I always assumed, because official defeats don't get parades, and nobody wants to explain a company of nobodies who did what a war college graduate couldn't. I took a discharge and a new name on the paperwork, and I have been fixing things nobody important cares about for 26 years. It suited me fine. It didn't suit him, I said. He looked for you. My seneschal tells me there's a file. I only learned of it this morning, after I saw your arm and had someone check. He searched for the survivors of that crew for a decade after the war, quietly, never through official channels, because an official inquiry would have meant admitting the account was false, and admitting that would have meant admitting he owed his life and his crown to 9 people the record doesn't name. He never found you. You'd already become someone else. She was quiet for a long moment, turning the spanner over once more, then setting it down beside her. Careful, the way you set down something you don't trust your hand to hold steady much longer. I don't want a parade, she said. I want you to know that first, before you say whatever you came down here dressed like that to avoid saying. I don't want my name in a record book. I don't want a medal I'll have to explain at parties I won't attend. I fixed a coil housing with a spanner because it was the job in front of me, same as I'm fixing this one now. I'm not offering you a parade, I said. I came down here because a ship needed fixing, and I wanted to see her fly again before I flew her myself, one last time, the way he used to. I didn't know I'd find the reason he lived long enough to raise me, still wearing a stranger's name stitched over her pocket, drinking tea out of a chipped cup in a bay nobody important visits. I stood, and for once she let me, and I did the only thing that felt honest in that moment. Not a bow, not a proclamation, nothing that would have made her flinch and reach for the door. I picked up the second spanner from her toolbox, the plain one, and held it out to her, handle first, the way you offer help on a job, not a gift. Show me the coil housing, I said. You said yourself it needs 2 sets of hands, and I've got nothing better to do this afternoon than learn what my father never told me how to do himself. She looked at the spanner, then at me, and something in her face loosened for the first time since I'd walked in. Not gratitude, exactly. Something quieter and harder earned than that. Recognition, maybe, of a kind she hadn't expected to receive from a crown that never came looking properly the first time. Hold it at that angle, she said, or you'll strip the housing bolt and I'll have to fix your mistake too. I held it at that angle. We fixed the ship together, and she never did tell me the name she'd worn at Corin's pass, and I never asked again. Some things, I have learned, are better left as they are, not paraded, not recorded, just quietly, finally, seen.